I'm going to take off my glasses, that way I can't see you so clearly. It's easier for me. Thank you for the very kind and warm words of introduction. Bishut Rav Eliada, Marda Atra, Rav David Horowitz, Rosh Kollel, Meir Chaim Brody. Broide. The mayor told me that something I didn't know, that he was told by Rabbi Simcha Zissel Broide, the great Rosh Yeshiva in Yerushalayim, that Broide stands for Bnei Rabbanim V'Yodei Dat Emet. Shkoyach, Ashrecha. And Deputy Mayor, Mr. Chaim Goldman, a lot of Chaim, yeah, Baruch Hashem, a lot of life. And our very dear friends, Lauren and Colin. The reason I say Lauren and Colin, because Lauren is one of my wife's best friends. They're really, really close friends, and a tremendous, tremendous support. They both come from Cape Town. I hate to admit it, but there's really good things that come out of Cape Town. I'm from Johannesburg, and the Goldsteins, you're from Pretoria, isn't there? But also good things come out of there. And Lauren and Colin have been and are dear friends, and I say Lauren to Shelley, the very strong connection. And also Colin and the whole Goldstein family. When Shelley said to me that Lauren had asked, so once my wife asked for something, she asked for something. And also I wanted to honor also the Goldstein family, because we all know of the incredible fact that this is the 10th anniversary of the Shabbat project. I studied in Yeshiva with Rav Warren. We met at Bnei Akiva camp together and decided to go to Yeshiva together. Actually, Colin met Saul at that camp. I was Saul's madrich. So I was with Warren in Yeshiva, and Saul was my madrich, and you were in between. So you're a little bit younger than me, not enough to be a madrich, but not the same age. But we connected, as Colin said, over the years, and very deeply connected with Colin, with Lauren, with the Goldstein family. And firstly, to do anything for Shabbat, and to do anything that the Goldstein family is connected to, especially on the 10th anniversary of the incredible Shabbat project, is an honor. And to honor our friendship also with Lauren and Colin together, it's really a tremendous zchut to be here. And I want to welcome my daughter. Where's Shira? Shira here? No, I need to put on my glasses too. It's my daughter Shira. Shira is here. Shira is our youngest daughter. And of course, all of us she's only one living at home at the moment. Two brothers who've been in the army for many, many years, both of them. And our older daughter is finished Sharut Lomi and is less at home than Shira is. And our very special Shira. I imagine, unfortunately, not unfortunately, but you by and large know the story of Daniel and Yonatan. You know the joke when a rabbi takes off the watch. You know that. I won't repeat it. Whenever a rabbi takes off the watch, it means absolutely nothing. It just makes you think I'm going to finish at 8 o'clock, but I think I do need to finish at 8 o'clock because there's Marif. And we all need God on our side. So I just want to say, in the time that I have, that as follows. As Colin said, to wake up to reality on that dark day, that you've got one son who's been injured and shot through the leg, and another son who's missing, was of course something that nothing prepares you for. And I'll just briefly tell you the story a little bit about what happened and happening with Yonatan and Daniel. And then if I may, I'd like to just reflect on some spiritual reflections of what this process means for me, how I'm processing it. How I'm processing it is different from anyone else. We all process things in our own way. And I'd like to share with you just some of the process. So our oldest son, Yonatan, was at home with his fiancée with us in Yad Binyamin, to be married 9 days later. And our youngest son, Daniel, was at a base in the south where he's a tank commander, an officer, and his chevra were down south for Shabbat. Yonatan, we all go into the mamad, the air raid shelter at 6:30, as the mayor said. That's when it started in Yad Binyamin, and for about an hour and a half we were in and out the air raid shelter. We're like all joking about it a little bit. What is this? We're used to the Iron Dome. We're used to this. And at 8 o'clock, my son's phone starts pinging the whole time. He has his phone on. He's an officer in the paratroopers. And his phone is pinging, and he normally doesn't look at his phone, but he said, "It's pinging too much, Dad." He looks at it, and he says something's going on. He's on a WhatsApp group with 120 company commanders from his officers course, and he said something's not right. I need to look. And there's a Hebrew word, if you haven't yet heard of it, there's a Hebrew word called hazui, right? Hazui, which means something like crazy. And everyone's saying crazy, crazy, crazy. And he goes to the top. What's crazy? That there's this mini trailer or this tender with terrorists shooting, and none of these officers can work out what this is. What is this? Can it be that somebody got in from Gaza? A bird can't flap its wings and get through the fence. It can't be. He didn't think that it could be from there. Then his officer says to him, he gets a WhatsApp from his officer, the command of the base where he is a base of new recruits of paratroopers in 101, and says to him, not to him, anyone who can should come to Sderot. So he gets up, he's running. I said, easy, Tiger, where are you off to? I'm going to. I said, no, you're not. None of us knew what was going on. I said, his officer said, what did he say? Anyone who can. What does that mean? That doesn't exactly sound like a call up to me. I said, why don't you phone him? You've got your wife to be here, and you're an officer of new recruits where you're looking after new recruits. He phones his office and says, what's going on? He says, Yonatan, if you've got a weapon, come to Sderot. He's up and getting ready. I said, Yonatan, you don't have a weapon. You left your gun at the base, which he's never done before, but he did it because it was Simchat Torah and he was going to Hakafot Shniot, and his fiancée, now his wife, lives in Kibbutz Saad down south, and he was going to go and take her back and afterwards come back. And to cut a long story short, said, Yonatan, you don't have a weapon. And he said, he's got his gun. I said, yeah, and you're going down to, none of us knew what was going on. He said, I'll take Daniel's handgun as well. The two of them recently both got handguns. And off he goes. So I just ran outside. I said, Yonatan, just firstly drive safely. Because I knew he was going to go off to Sderot. And none of us knew what was going on. And I wasn't particularly concerned because none of us knew what was going on. At 4:30 in the afternoon, his phone starts ringing and ringing and ringing. Sorry, my phone and Shelley's phone and my phone and Shelley's phone for about an hour. And I said, okay, it wasn't from his number. He picks up the phone. I pick up the phone and said, yes. He said, Dad, I'm okay. You know what that means? We always feel not okay. I've been shot through the thigh. I'm okay. I said, did it hit any bones and arteries? You know that if you can get shot in the thigh and if it, God forbid, hits the main artery, you can, if you don't put a tourniquet on properly in 90 seconds, you can bleed to death, as many have. He says, I'm at Soroka Hospital. I'm being checked. He said, Dad, you have no idea what is going on. I can't explain to you. I just want to let you know that I'm very, very worried about Galia's parents. I said, I fought just outside Kfar Aza and Saad. He didn't know that they hadn't gone into Saad. I'm so worried that they're not with us anymore because I cannot explain to you what is going on here. He said, I'm also worried about Galia's brother. Galia's brother is a Samgad, a deputy battalion commander in the paratroopers. He's their Shadchan. His name is Neria. Neria was an officer, a Mem-Pay, when Yonatan was a Mem-Mem, and they met. He wasn't under him. But he saw Yonatan and said, I think Yonatan would be good for his sister Galia. And then Neria's wife saw Yonatan and said, I think it's good for Galia. He plucked up the courage, and he is their Shadchan. He said, Dad, I was told that two helicopters came with the officers and the soldiers of Shmonamut Tishim, and I know one was shot down, and I'm worried that something's happened to Neria. So I get this call that he's concerned that God forbid that his parents-in-law-to-be have got Rahman al-Islam, the wonderful family, the Landaus, as well as Neria. So I don't know what to do with that. I very obviously, softly told Shelley that Yontan's been shot, and obviously was very but lightly and all good. And I spoke to him, and he sounded fine. I'm going to talk to him after Shabbos. And I just remember sitting and not knowing what to do. And Galia was saying she can't wait for Shabbat to come out, and I was saying, boy, oh boy, do you want to wait for Shabbat to come out? And we just had this tremendous fear. And he also said, and by the way, I fought in Nachal Oz. I fought in the area where Daniel's tank was. And when we went into the base, he wasn't sent there because Daniel was there. He was just sent there. He said, I saw that his tank wasn't there. I know where it parks and it wasn't there. So we had some hope that he was in the tank fighting. But as the day wore on and we hadn't heard, so by the end of Yontif, it was really, really difficult. What turns out is that, and I know this, our soldiers are just unbelievable. Our civilians are unbelievable, and I'm going to speak a little bit about that. But I'll tell you that Yonatan I heard from his commanding officer. And I think for me, Wednesday was a day that I was able to sort of come outside of myself and start seeing the world beyond our family pain, is when his commanding officer came to visit him and spoke for an hour and a half. And I listened to every single word that he said. And I remember straight after thinking to myself that Hashem has done us the most unbelievable chesed with Yonatan. 4 of his friends who fought next to him, 1 was shot in the back, 2 were shot in the stomach, and not all are doing so well. They'll all be okay, Bezrat Hashem. The one who was shot in the stomach, as terrible as it was, for that, Yonatan was able to take his gun. He didn't have a gun. That's why he was going. He was able to take his gun. He saw somebody from Seyert Matkal in an ambulance, and he took his helmet. And this is how they were doing for the first number of hours. He said every 50 meters, he said, Dad, cars were, I don't want to describe here, you know them and it's not worth going over the horrific scenes that he saw every 50 meters. They basically fought for hours and hours. The car in front of him, the Jeep, as they were going past Saad down towards what's called Chet Shachor down to Nachal Oz, was hit by a RPG. And three officers in Maglan were killed. And the RPG, I've subsequently heard, was shot at them, went straight over their heads. They opened the doors and just started shooting left, right, and center. And they got to Nachal Oz. They saw that Maglan was going to the kibbutz of Nachal Oz, and they got a command. They said, 1 o'clock, go into Mutzav, Nachal Oz. Luckily, Yonatan had been based there before and had visited Daniel many times. He was the only one. I mean, listen, you've got an inorganic group of soldiers, 5 guys from Yamam Special Police Forces, a retired general, Israel Ziv, a battalion commander, and 2 other officers, and Yonatan. And going in, they saw terrorists in the base, and luckily he was the only one who actually knew the base. At least one of them knew the base. They weren't fighting blind. And in the next hour and 45 minutes, they managed to save 20, 25 tatzpitaniot and people who were hiding. And of course, for us, it's a tremendous chut, kol hamitzil nefesh achat miYisrael. Anyone who saves another human being, another Jew, is a tremendous thing. And we know how many people have saved so many people. And they managed to get them out and continue fighting. They killed many terrorists. And about 2:45, they were ambushed by the last few terrorists in the base, and he was shot through the thigh. And only by the grace of God, as I said, the guy immediately next to him was shot in the back and in the leg, and the guy on the other side was shot in the stomach. So I don't really think what I'm doing is heroic. I've met people who are really heroic. I have a son who, God forbid, could have been in a very different position. And when you've seen the grace of God with one son, and you know with absolute knowledge that Hashem sent him there and took him out with a relatively light injury, is a bracha that I can't begin to explain. That doesn't change what's going on with Daniel. But you can't have one bracha and chesed impacted by another challenge and curse. That's not how life works. We have to hold it all together. And I will say that I spoke today at a group from the OU rabbis. There's lots of groups coming all the time to Israel. And I spoke with a friend of mine. You might have heard his story. This is a story of a hero. My friend Rabbi Shmuel Slotki had his 2 sons. His one son, I work with him. His one son is married to a girl from Yad Binyamin, where we're from. And his other son is married to someone else, not from Yad Binyamin. And the 2 of them live in Beersheba. Shai, 24 years old, and Noam, 31. They are neighbors. They live in Beersheba. Somebody came up from the south saying, we're fleeing the south. Terrible things are happening. These 2 married boys together got in a car together, left their wives and children, put on their uniform. They're civilians who are both in infantry units, but they're now civilians, took their handguns, and together went to Alumim and fought with tens of terrorists in Alumim and were shot and killed in Alumim. And to lose 2 sons in one day, and I won't take you through what they went until they identified them as also a nightmare within a nightmare within a nightmare. And I get a call in our home a couple of days ago, and who's it? It's Rabbi Shmuel Slotki outside my home. He said, Rabbi Doron, I just want to come give you a hug. I know that you need chizuk. Mi ka'amcha Yisrael goy echad ba'aretz. These are the real heroes. And here is, can't see, but it's Rabbi Slotki in his army uniform. He's in Miluim, coming to give me a hug. He's got 3 other sons in the army, in infantry units. And he spoke today to the group, and there was no need for me to speak afterwards. We have hope. We have one son who Hashem saved, and we have another son who we hope Hashem will save, along with the other 240 hostages, and we hope and pray. He has lost 2 sons. The amount of suffering, since we now are in this, just want to say, we decided to go ahead with the wedding once we knew that Daniel was missing in action, and it was going to be quite a while till the status would be changed for various reasons. So we sat with Yonatan and Galia and the Landau family and our family on a Thursday afternoon, decided that from couple, what they're going to wait around, and he's going to go back to the army, and decided to get married. And it was a very, very, very special wedding. Our friends in Yad Binyamin organized it in a few days, and it was a much smaller wedding. It was live streamed. Some of you might have seen it because 300, many people that we invited couldn't come because of the size. Galia's 6 brothers or brothers-in-law who all in the army, she wasn't sure if any of them would come to the wedding. And thankfully they all came to the wedding, and it was very, very special. And even though it was very, very painful when the our community rabbi, Rabbi Merzbach, mentioned Daniel, I have to be honest, I was trying to put him out my mind for that. I said, I just need to focus on Yonatan. And I had this sort of focus for the wedding. And the next minute he said, but we have to acknowledge somebody who's not here. Daniel, I think Shelly was stronger than me, just broke down. And I've seen that you can cry. And I remember actually Saul saying to me, and Saul went through such a difficult time, he said to me, he's learned that, nobody dies from tears. Nobody dies from tears. And you cry, and we wiped our faces off, and we did a prayer for Daniel, and it was incredibly painful. Some of the family pictures were painful, but it was an incredible simcha. And somebody said, a friend of mine said, a quote, she said, it was the holiest, saddest, happiest chuppah she'd ever been at. And it was all of that. And I can talk a lot about that, which I don't want to. I want to talk about something else I've spoken quite a bit about in different fora or forums about holding different feelings together. And I've seen, I'll just say something for 2 minutes because I want to focus on a few other ideas. Life is stronger than rationality. We sometimes debate issues in the laboratory of human thought, but sometimes they are resolved in the realm of human life. And I have seen that it is possible to hold incredible worry and charada with incredible simcha and chedva. It's possible. And for me, the biggest insight that I came out of this was the first insight that I had after the wedding was that when Shlomo HaMelech says in Kohelet, the wisest man in the book of Jewish philosophy and wisdom, that there l'chol zman va'et, in every time there's a time of life and a time of death, a time lischok va'et livkot v'chulei. I always thought these were different times, but it's really made me realize something that when I reflected on it, that all of us go through all of this together. Who in their life has not, unfortunately, experienced death and loss where you can't ever really get over it? And who doesn't have infinite simcha? Who doesn't have issues in their life, be it child rearing, be it parnasa, be it health? We all, be it shalom bayit, all of us have got issues in our life. And I realized for me that in this extreme way, which teaches about the klal, that life is about going through contradictions which cannot be resolved and just resolving them through the pulse of life. And it's possible. It's possible. I'm no groiser chochem. It's been 23, 24 days, and we hope and pray that it ends. But in the time that we have had, I have seen that, and it is possible. And I said, we are lucky. We are lucky that we can hold on to Yonatan's health and well-being and simcha, and try and cope with the angst and the concern. And it is possible. It's possible. And it's possible because people in a much worse situation than us are dealing with it. I'm now in the family of hostages. I was at a meeting with the Minister of Defense this week. He gave 40 people, one family member of 20 soldiers and one family member of 20 civilians. We went to the Kira in Tel Aviv. He sat with us for 3 hours, 2.5, 3 hours. He listened to every single story. I found it very hard because I listened to story after story, and I realized it's too much. Each story is too much. And we were one, I don't want to say the lucky ones. There's nothing lucky about having a son taken hostage, but relative to what people are going through, firstly, we only had one child. Many people had multiple. There was a lady who spoke. I could see the pain in her face before she spoke. From Nir Oz, she said her father was murdered, her mother is hostage, and her brother is missing. And she looked at Sarah and said, how do people disappear in thin air? How does that happen in 2023? Where is my brother? Where is he? Story after story. The worst of the stories is a family of 12, which have all been taken captive. They were together, grandparents, children, and grandchildren, and all been taken hostage. And just listening to these stories was just too much. And there is so much pain, but so much bravery in dealing with it. And I remember thinking to myself, we've only got one family member. And we're lucky that that family member is a boy. And we're lucky that he's a strong boy. We're lucky that he's not taking medicine. We're lucky that he doesn't have all types of other issues. You listen to the issues of each family. I don't know if you heard, now people speak a lot about Be'eri. The kibbutz called Nir Oz, of 400 people in the Yishuv, not including foreign walkers, has 100 dead and 80 hostages. In the Yishuv, almost 50% of the people. And had more time, I would go through just what the people said. But I just want a few reflections for you in the last 12 minutes, 11 minutes. There's no way I'm finishing at 8. No, I'm just saying I will finish at 8. I'll finish at 8. I'm fine. So just make it a bit difficult, Carl. It's all good. So I just want to say a few things. Number one, the bravery of the Jewish people. Our sons are two small examples. Rabbi Slotki's sons. There are thousands of examples. Od yisupar b'divrei hayamim shel milchamot Yisrael. How men and women, young and old, civilians and officers came and put their lives in the line. The people who were killed in that first few hours were either special forces people, other than the people obviously who were murdered in their homes, but the soldiers who were killed were either special forces people, they were the only ones called up, or people like my son and Rabbi Slotki's sons, even though his sons were civilians, but the majority of those who came were officers who heard from their senior officer that something is going on. My son went through the list. He said, Dad, you don't understand who is being killed. The best of the best. One of his friends, Ariel Ben Moshe, said, Dad, he is the best soldier I ever saw in my life, ever. He said he was a mempei in Sayeret Sanchanim, and he wanted to leave the army, and to keep him in the army, they offered something they never do. They sent him to Sayeret Matkal to be a mempei. He got killed in the first hours of the war, and go on and on and on and on and on. The gvura that our people has shown, the Mesirut Nefesh, to defend the Jewish people, to defend lives of people they don't know, is just unbelievable. Mi ka'amcha Yisrael goy echad ba'aretz. We are part of an unbelievable people which have such love for each other when we scratch the surface, and an unbelievable Mesirut Nefesh. That's number one. Number two, Colin mentioned Pesach. One of the things which I've often spoken about in Pesach, but has now obviously become clearer to me, is that the Jewish story, Rabbi Beryl Wein often says that, I've heard him say a few times, that, nostalgia is remembering things the way they were not. We don't remember things the way they were not. We tell it how it is. We sit our children down on the festival and say, do you know what it means to be a Jew? It's a great story. It's a story of Geula. It's a story with an amazing end. But you have to know, Avadim hayinu b'paro b'Mitzrayim. It was very bad for us for a long time. And you have to eat the maror. And if you don't eat the maror, you haven't been yotzei obligation. And you have to tell your child what the plot of the Haggadah is. The plot of the Haggadah, says the Mishnah, is matchil begnut, musayim b'shvach. There is so much bitterness in life. Life can be very bitter, but that is not the story of the Jewish people. The story of the Jewish people is the taste of the Korban Pesach. The taste is in your mouth. What is the taste of Judaism? It's a taste of love of life. It's a taste of freedom. It's a taste of living in Hashem's world where things make sense even when they don't make sense to us. And al matzot umarim yuchlu. Yes, you need to eat maror, but it's eaten with the Korban Pesach, and it's eaten with the lechem oni. And the story is an amazing story with bitterness. There is bitterness. Shverza zayne yet, it's not easy. And b'chol dor vador, as Colin said, umdim alaynu chaloteinu. But that's not the story. That's not the story. And our story is one of not only unbelievable gvura, it's an unbelievable hashgacha from Hashem, and knowing that life, with all its pain and difficulty, life is laced with, that is not the story of life. I also want to say that a pasuk, which there's a song by a singer of Remy Flam, which I've been in my mind a lot, and I want to share it with you. It's a verse in Yeshayahu, which was from the Haftarah of Parshat Noach. I want to thank my friend Rabbi Doron for pointing it out to me. It was in the Haftarah of Noach. We read it a few weeks ago, of Rania Kara Lo Yalada. Here's the pasuk, and I think this pasuk describes exactly what happened. Berega katon azavtich, says God, it's in Perek Nun Vav of Yeshayahu, Nun Daled. For a moment, I left you alone. It was a moment. The pasuk continues. B'shetzef ketzef histarti panai rega mimech. I took my eye off the Jewish people, and what happened? Shetzef ketzef, for a moment. For a moment in Jewish history. Oteif Aza was the most dangerous place in the world for a Jew since the Shoah. There was no one to protect us. Nothing. Not Israel's technology, not every bit of defense system that Israel has. No one was there to protect. My son arrived at 1 o'clock in Nachal Oz, right? We know that there were terrorists there since 7 in the morning. We know that by the time the defense of Nachal Oz fell, it was 9 o'clock. That means for 4 hours. In that particular, there were murderous people walking around doing the horrific things. There was no one to protect us. And in that moment, and just listening to the people sitting around the room, of how these people said that they've lived here, they've put their faith in the state of Israel, they put their faith in the army. Most of them don't have foreign passports. They said, now we're going to be prejudiced because we've good, loyal Israelis, right? And over 1,000 civilians killed. And how can it be? How can it be? And in that rega, in that blip in Jewish history, it was the darkest day since the Shoah. But how does the pasuk continue? Berega katon azavtich, ubarachamim gdolim akabtzech. But the response is going to be with great rachamim, with great rachamim. Here's a rega katon. This is great rachamim. B'shetzef ketzef histarti panai rega mimech. I hid myself for a moment, and look what happened. Ubechesed elyon richamtich. And with great kindness I will bring geula. Amar Hashem goalech. Amar goalech Hashem. And great things will come out of this for the Jewish people. Great things will come out of this for the Jewish people. And the greatest thing that has been mentioned by Chaim, which is a gift from Hashem, it is so painful that it's happened in a way that no one could have imagined. But the unity that we're feeling today, certainly in my lifetime, I've never seen anything like this. People say 67, both the angst before and the incredible bracha. And as was said previously by the Rav, if in a moment's blindness of Hester Panim, look what can happen, then what can happen in with a great shakratzon for the Jewish people? I've been one of these people who have been horrified by the last year of Israel. And everybody was right. Everyone was right. Everybody was convinced they were right. And this is on the back of 4 years of Iraq. Yes, Bibi, no, Bibi. And everybody had all the answers to everything, and it just happened to be their answer. And I remember on Yom Kippur thinking to myself, when I read in Motzei Yom Kippur about that where in a Jewish state can you imagine such a Chilul HaKodesh in Tel Aviv? I remember thinking to myself, this is my own thought, what is God going to do to get this train smash waiting to happen? Because nobody's backing down. No one's backing down. What's going to happen? I was in an argument with a certain in the World Science Organization, and somebody said, yeah, but it was the right wing who killed Rabbi. And I said, and are you waiting for somebody from the left to kill Bibi? Is it then 1-1? What the heck is everybody waiting for? What is this? Are we soger cheshbonot? What are we waiting for? Who's going to back down? Everybody's right. And berega echad, God said, as difficult as it is, you are one people. You don't have the luxury that everyone else has. And we've got this horrific wake-up call and reminder that we are one people. No longer am echad, yeshno am echad, mefuzar furad, which is our greatest weakness, we one people. And when we stand together as the Jewish people, when we daven together as the Jewish people, and I want to take the opportunity to thank so many of you and everyone around the world, not for davening for Daniel, and for davening for all of the Nedarim and the Shvuyim, and for all of our children today. The angst of mothers and the angst, my only advice, and I don't have too much time, I just want to say to mothers and fathers, the one thing that I've learned is you only can live in the present. To worry about things that you have no control over is to involve yourself in Hane Kavsed Rahmana. We do not control the future. Human beings make mistakes. We sometimes do God jobs and we forget what our job is. For instance, our job is not to judge people. When you judge people, you're standing as God. Nobody died and made you made you the judge. Don't do God's job for him. Your job is to judge people favorably. If you're worried about the future, which we all are, that's what God, leave it to God. Why are you worrying something about you've got no control over? That is not your domain. No human being on earth knows in any realm what's going to happen in 1 second time. No one knows. And therefore, we have to live in the Hoveh. It's Hashem is Haya Hoveh V'yeh. We need to have perspective of past and future as Jews, because you can never understand the present without perspective of the past and without a vision for the future. But you cope with the present through living in the only thing that we have, and is that the moment that we have right now. And therefore, we live in a world, in Hashem's world, where there are no coincidences. We live in a world of goodness with all of the challenge. And at least 50% of the things we worry about never ever happen. So why worry? If they're going to happen, they're going to happen, and they most likely won't happen. And therefore, we live in Hashem's world where there is goodness, and the unity that we have today is the greatest iron dome that we have. The unity and the love on Israel, and there are so many examples. I mentioned one or two of them at the Chalabek that I've personally experienced. We haven't had something like this. And I want to end and say that I once read a quote from somebody who I think was, he was the chief of staff of Barack Obama. His name is Ram Emanuel, Israeli American. And he once said, don't ever waste a good crisis. This is a horrific, horrific crisis. My friend Rabbi Slotky said today, he said, I've sacrificed 2 sons, and I'm now dedicating my life to make sure that they didn't die in vain. If we go back to how we have handled ourselves the last 5 years, oy vavoy lanu. What we need now is a new covenant of the Jewish people, not just a social contract, which is a non-Jewish idea. The idea of a social contract is in Rousseau and Hobbes. The Jewish people have got a much deeper idea. It's called a Brit. Hashem made a Brit with us in Brit Bein Abtarim, and he made a Brit in Brit Milah. And he said to us, do you know who's in the covenant with you? I am in it with you. The most revolutionary idea. I tie myself to you, and therefore you tie yourselves to each other. And a Brit, as opposed to a social contract is one large insurance company, says Rav Kook, where everybody's just trying to insure themselves through everybody else. We are not in this because of personal interest. We're not in this because we're trying to use others to protect our individual rights. Judaism does not recognize rights. It recognizes responsibilities. You have a right not because you have a right. You have a right because I have a responsibility to look after you. We don't have rights. We've got it all wrong. It's the most selfish thing. I have rights. You don't have rights. You have responsibilities. And because everyone's got responsibilities to everybody else, so everyone else has rights because we're responsible for each other. It's called Klal Yisrael. That's what it is. Much, much bigger than ourselves. And we, Baruch Hashem, are an unbelievable people, which we sometimes forget through our Kashrut Oref. And Hashem has revealed to us who we really are. And we have this gift, even though it's such a painful way, to just re-look at everything with humility, with the most beautiful Hebrew word called hachala, that you don't have all of the truth, right? You might have part of it. The truth is with everybody. Hachala, make space for everybody. And we cannot and dare not operate how we operated until now. And this is our great opportunity. It's what Rabbi Slotky said, and I agree with it wholeheartedly. And I'll end and say, don't know, it's 8 o'clock. I'm over time, so I can just keep going. No, I'm going to end now. It's okay. Give a rabbi the pulpit, you're in trouble. But I will finish in the next, whenever I decide to. No, it's the 2 minutes. Just to say the following is to say that we say that the motto of this war at the moment is B'yachad Nenatzach. Be'emet B'yachad Be'ezrat Hashem Nenatzach. Hashem is so close to the Jewish people. He's so close to us when we stand. Mi goy gadol asher Elokim krovim elav. When we stand together. B'chol koreinu elav. When we stand together. Jewish history is littered with examples, according to Chazal, that the greatest zchut of the Jewish people is when we stand together. We have an opportunity here. The army, there is such resolve in the army that there's never been. There's an understanding that we're all in this together. There's an understanding that we need to do what we need to do. And we're all in this together. And Bezrat Hashem, there are seminal moments in history. I'll end with Rav Tzadok, as Rav Eliada quoted Rav Tzadok, but I think Rav Tzadok, in the beginning of Tzidkat, or Pri Tzedek, I can't remember exactly where it says, why did Mitzrayim happen b'chipazon? Because sometimes there's such great moments that you can't wait for. They happen quickly. When things happen quickly and history moves forward, it's because something big has happened. Something very big is happening. Please God, it's a new stage of the Geulah in Israel, where the Jewish people will come together with a new stage of oneness and togetherness, and together face the challenges ahead. And Be'ezrat Hashem, in the words of Rav Soloveitchik, with this Brit Goral that has been created of all of us together, we will have Yeshuot v'Nechamot for every single one of your and our children who are defending us, that every single one, unfortunately, there have been 17 or 18 who have already fallen. We hope and pray that there'll be no more. And just like Avraham Avinu went out to war and brought back Lot and every captive that he wanted to without any of his soldiers being harmed, we hope and pray that in the schut of this unity, in the schut of this achdut, we will, Bezrat Hashem, have the most unbelievable Yeshua. And just before I end, I'd like to say, if I may, I finished, Colin, but this is after I finished, okay? It's just to say that the Goldsteins very kindly purchased many copies of this book. I was had a big merit to write this book, which was published just on Erev, on Yom Ha'atzmaut. It's called The Jewish State from Opposition to Opportunity. There's some copies here, and we've reprinted for next week. It's called A Vision for Unity in Israel and Why the World Needs It. It basically tries to understand a Torah view on Zionism and the State of Israel. How can it be that anti-Semitism has transformed into anti-Zionism in our era? I found a Vilna Gaon in Habakkuk, and the first 6 chapters are trying to understand it. For me, it was absolutely mind-boggling and unfortunately so relevant today, about the spiritual roots of Palestinian nationhood, who the Plishtim were according to the Gra. And second one is called Opportunity. The second half of the book is 4 ideas of Rav Kook on why Jewish unity is the most potent thing that the Jewish state needs, how we achieve unity, why we need it, because that is the greatest spiritual nechus of the Jewish people. And Be'ezrat Hashem, I'm really finishing now, to Be'ezrat Hashem say, in the merit of our togetherness, in the merit of our strength, in the merit of this oneness that Hashem has blessed us with, that the oneness of the Jewish people, in the one land of the Jewish people, with the one God, of when we stand with Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad, as Goy Echad Ba'aretz, we have unbelievable koach that can turn the world upside down, as Rav Eliada said, and the impossible becomes possible. And Be'ezrat Hashem, please continue to daven for Daniel Shimon. Please continue to daven for all of the Ben Sharon, all of the hostages, and the refuah for those who have been injured, for all of our and your children, that every one of them returns with the world a much better place, with this evil on our doorstep removed, and ushering in a new and hopeful era for Jewish history for the future. Shabbat Shalom, and thank you.